Atlas is by far my largest project to date. Although SOS put together was 17 minutes, Atlas is my longest single short film at 12 minutes. Atlas taught me plenty about video creation and animation, but also taught me lots about visual effects, practical effects, sound design, creating music and soundtracks, set design, voice acting, script and script revision, writing stories, concept art, and filming miniature effects. In this behind the scenes video, I'm gonna go by category. I'm gonna explain the various details and processes involved within animation, visual effects, practical effects, sound design, soundtrack and music, set design, voice acting, script and script revision, concept art, miniature effects, story, inspirations, and software, and much more. Animation. In terms of animation, there isn't much to say. Atlas was filmed at 15 frames per second on Stop Motion Studio Pro, which is an app you can get on your phone. Stop motion is the art of moving anything frame by frame by taking pictures to give it an illusion of movement. This could be with dolls, figures, minifigures, or even everyday objects such as pencils or erasers. In terms of animation, I did my best to give Atlas a polished look. This did not always happen, as some shots turned out choppy or just didn't look that good. This was due to several reasons. Primarily, the walk cycle shots didn't turn out good because I'm not experienced with animating several figures at once, especially for walk cycles. Walk cycles have always been a weak point of mine, and I'm working towards improving myself on that. In terms of the speed of some movements of the figures, stylistically I've always had a faster style of making figures move faster. I did take the constructive criticism and will work towards making slower movements in the future, but overall I was happy with how the animation turned out, minus a few of those shots. I have also received some advice to look at and or record myself walking and then use that as reference footage, either rotoscoped or not, to become better at making walk cycles. I can also reduce distractions by getting rid of music when I'm doing scenes that require concentration, and also watching potentially tutorials to improve my skills at walk cycles. Set design. In terms of set design, I mainly use construction paper and cardboard, either taping, gluing, or sticky tacking the construction paper onto the cardboard, and then using a black thin pointed Sharpie or thick pointed Sharpie to add various detailing. For the detailing, I tried to go for an industrial look, making various pipes, panels, and various other details that didn't need to be distinguishable just to be there. My main reference for the detailing was pictures of the walls and hallways from Alien 1979. In addition to the drawn-on details, I also hung various metal chains and objects from the tops of the walls to help add to that look. In Alien 1979, chains and various things hanging from the ceiling were an iconic part of the film, so I wanted to make sure to pay homage to the film by adding those various details. I also added many other details like barrels, containers, cans, and also telephone booths like seen in Alien Isolation, all to add extra detailing and add some extra bulk to the set design. Since Atlas took place on a spaceship, and because I created windows to see out into the space, I needed to create an effect that would work well for this. Normally people would use blue or green screens depending on what colors and elements you have on your set, and I contemplated this and did some tests. Now, I wasn't satisfied with how the test looked, as you could clearly see that it was green screen removed, even though this was on my phone, not on my editing software, and I was not satisfied with how it looked. So I decided to take a suggestion from another animator called Crustier by putting an LED background. I already previously heard of LED screens by being used by Industrial Light and Magic on Boba Fett and The Mandalorian TV shows, and I knew that they were very beneficial as they immersed actors, they helped create realistic lighting and reflections everywhere, and they also allowed you to change things on the go. So on the show they would change the background on the go based on what they wanted to make a better polished product. I tried to implement all these things while I was filming Atlas by using a large device with a screen in the background. I used this for the space background for stars, but also I used it for the sequence when the Nostromo explodes and there's lots of explosions and fire. I just took a clip off YouTube of non-copyright fire explosions in space, and I played it and as quickly as I could and stopped it as quickly as I could to do it frame by frame kind of effect in the background, and this proved very useful. The downsides of using an LED screen were some reflections, as sometimes you could see a lamp reflected, possibly part of my body reflected, or even some of the set. Some of the set being reflected is fine, as it is natural for there to be reflections like that, but to some extent it did ruin some of the visual polished visual look that I was trying to go for. Overall, I was very happy with how the effect turned out, and I was happy I tried it out. There weren't many very obvious practical effects in Atlas, but there were some that I'd like to mention. Carl, when he dies from the xenomorph, his helmet is broken and shattered. That practical effect was achieved by taking the helmet visor and literally grabbing a pair of pliers and various other knives and tools and breaking the visor on purpose, and then getting clay, red baking clay, and a marker to get some of the gore. I didn't want to go excessive with the gore or the breakage on the helmet, so I just decided to leave it as it was, and I think it turned out to make a nice effect, and it looked more authentic rather than if I masked it and made it in another way. Some of the other practical effects include using lamps and lights at various angles to create the glow on the helmets. In early 1979, they had a bit of a glow around their helmets, and that was achieved by using flashlights from behind at a specific angle, around 45 degrees to the other side of the figure, but also at an elevation of around 45 degrees. Some other notable practical effects in Atlas include the smoke, which was achieved using cotton balls, the gunshots on Carl's gun, which were achieved using paper and a light to make it look like it was shining, the LED backgrounds on the sets, and also another very noticeable practical effect was the damage on the dead crewmate. As you can see, I'm showing right now, here's some images, close-up images of the dead crewmate. His name was Ryan, and to create this, it's a very simple technique. All you have to do is grab some sticky tack, you put it onto the figure you want, and using whatever tool you have, whether it's a piece of a wooden stick or a pen or whatever tool you have, you shape it, and then once you're satisfied with the shape, you can go over it with black and silver Sharpie to make it look like the armor was damaged. And if you want gore, you can add some clay or a red marker, which is how I achieved this effect. This is also how I achieved the motion tracker. Since I didn't have an actual motion tracker, I took the stock of a Call of Duty, the main part of a Call of Duty gun, and I filled in that parts of it at the front and back with sticky tack. I used the Sharpie to make it black so you wouldn't notice, and then I attached a magazine on top and to make it look like almost like a screen, and it served its purpose very well. So this is a technique I'd really recommend if you want to customize your figures if you don't have any putty or green stuff. Practical effects involve many things such as blood, gore, suits for actors, explosions, muzzle flares, and many more things. But for things such as spaceships and other things in movies, they've often used models. Models have been greatly replaced by CGI, but I find that using miniature effects is more rewarding and can be more realistic than using computer-generated imagery. For the practical effects, I had to build my own model of the Nostromo. Using some reference images I found on Google, I used some cardboard, stacked it together, and bent it in various ways using a hot glue gun to create a main frame for the model. On top of that frame, I added some old parts from model kits like guns, bombs, missiles, various parts of tanks, armor, and various things like that to create more detailing and to build up the model and to make it more accurate to the original model from 1979. I then mixed some acrylic paints together and painted over the model, covering every piece of the surface, and then I went to film it. Filming the model was not the hardest process. I would say editing was harder. For filming the model, I put the model onto a book which was covered, the whole thing was covered in a blanket that was orange. The reason I used orange was because I didn't have any blanket that was a good solid color and that was in the right size, so I chose to go with an orange background. For the background, I had to attach it to my wall, and then I also added some motion tracking points. As some shots would have the background of my house involved, I had to create some crosses using blue tape and creating a black dot so the software would have better, would be allowed to motion track on those points easier than if there was nothing there. And it did help because the software attached itself to the dots and the crosses, and I was able to create a mask that moved, so that I just had that. Adjusting the mask settings, I eventually found a setting that allowed everything to be black, and then using a rectangle shape that I made black on both sides and splitting into blocks, I copy pasted, moving it, adjusting it by keyframing it. I was able to achieve it so that the whole background was black. Doing this with stars would have been much harder, and I don't know if it would have looked good, and I'm not experienced enough in editing or motion tracking to have achieved that. Once I had the background removed and I had a decent chroma key set up, all I had to do was move on to adding various filters. I added sharpen filters, I added reducing bit resolution filters, I added brightness, contrast, gamma filters, hue, saturation, value filters, and red, green, blue filters, and various other filters to create a sharper image, and also to adjust the color so it matches the background better. This made it so much better, and also made it reminded me a lot of the look I was going for after the cutscenes in Alien Isolation. When you're loading up to a mission, you often get these little cutscenes of the ship of the Sevastopol station, and I was always inspired by how it looked granulated and very noisy, so I tried to achieve that by using sharpen filters and having the bad camera quality, but sharpening it gave it that kind of look with lots of noise in it. Once I was done with all that, all I had to do was apply some video effects on top. So this included adding particle effects, which are snowflakes. I had to make them very small, adjust the speed, transparency, and I had sort of what looked like asteroids and pieces of metal and various things you would find in space. I also added smoke, which I had to adjust the direction, speed, transparency, and then I also added the lens flare, which also covered up any of the mistakes, and also lens flares make everything look better, and I thought the final shots looked great. I had to repeat this for many of the shots, and I edited all those shots. There were some shots without any motion tracking involved, since there was only orange visible, which was much faster to do because I didn't have to do any of the motion tracking, and that did save me time. In terms of voice acting, I played Ian, my friend Emma played Jessica, Floodmaker Productions played Aiden, Cam 4K Studios played Carl, Speedy Films played Ryan, the dead crewmate, and that was all the voice actors that were involved. There wasn't really many voice actors that were used, as there was a small cast mainly. They all did a great job. Part of the problem with voice acting is, and I don't blame my voice actors as I did this myself, is forgetting lines. Every voice actor except maybe one or two of them forgot lines, including me, and that, which was noticed by some viewers. In some areas there was a bit of an awkward pause or a line that didn't fit the best. That was because sometimes the lines were not available to me, so I had to make do while I was editing. In terms of the soundtrack for Atlas, I wanted to make it sound as authentic to Alien 1979 as possible. The Alien 1979 soundtrack was amazing, but personally I preferred Alien Isolation's soundtrack since it had more of a different and diverse set of instruments, and it also took the original sound to the soundtrack from 79 and it all innovated on it and made it more modern. And there was also many more tracks I could choose from, and there was also a lower chance of getting any copyright claims on those tracks. In terms of the sound effects, there wasn't much to say. I got most of my sound effects off of YouTube from people like Aegis Mind, That Sound Effects Guy, and other non-copyright sources. A lot of my sounds came from Alien Isolation, and I tried to make them as authentic to Alien 1979 as possible. I also ended up making some of my own sound using backpacks and everyday household items for sounds I couldn't find online, especially considering I couldn't trim videos using my MP3 downloader. It was better to create my own sounds instead of wasting lots of space on just a video that had a sound effect at the start and it was just blank the rest of the time. For the visual effects of Atlas, there weren't that many, but they were painstaking to do. For the text intro and outro, but mainly for the intro when you could see the font being typed and at the same time as the cursor was moving, that was achieved in VSDC Video Editor by creating a text layer, changing the font to Sevastopol Interface, which is a font you can find on that font, and then creating a shadow underneath and changing the intensity to higher, the area lower, and then changing the color to lime green to create that look. I then did the recoloring effect to make it look as if the font was appearing, changed the different rates and settings, and then I also had to make a cursor by using a rectangle that was the same height and width as the font and creating movement. For the lights on the helmets of the figures, I used a lens flare effect. Because this is a video effect and not an actual layer I imported, I was not able to do like automatic motion tracking where I could sit back and watch the software work. I had to take a layer of the video effect, so the lens flare, I had to break it into small pieces for each frame and copy paste it, move it sideways and down into the same layer, and do that over 2,500 times. And this was extremely painstaking and took over a week. Some shots still I wasn't happy with, but I wasn't gonna go back, and even my software slowed down dramatically after doing this with I probably had over 3,000 or 4,000 layers at that point. For the lens flares, I also used them for the point where Carl shoots his gun. In order to elevate the lens flare, I use practical effects. I thought it would be cool to create an orange lens flare on top of the muzzle flash that he had in order to elevate the look of it. The remaining VFX just consisted of color correction, so adding hue, saturation value, reducing bit resolution, sharpen filters, hue, saturation value, lightness, darkness filters such as that, all of those things just to elevate the picture quality, and that's about it for the VFX. The softwares I use to create Atlas are listed as following: Stop Motion Studio Pro. I don't have the Pro version, I have the normal version with several upgrades. I also use VSDC Free Video Editor, which is free and works on almost every single computer and system, so it's very versatile and it works very well. Green Screen by Doing to create the thumbnail, and Gun Movie Effects. Atlas's story is an alternate timeline of Alien 1979, where the crew ends up not surviving and Ripley does not end up defeating the Xenomorph. After not hearing from the Nostromo, the company Weyland-Yutani decides to send out a team to investigate. The crew consists of Jessica Erickson, Carl Larson, Aidan Farrell, and Ian Myers. These are all members of the Weyland-Yutani company working outside the Weyland-Yutani colonies. They originally go on their mission and they end up finding the Nostromo, which seems to be fine, and they proceed to board the Nostromo. They decide to go through a hatch and into the hallways, and they explore the Nostromo, noting that it's partially damaged from what appears to be acid, and there's a dead body they find containing a message. This message contains information regarding what happened on the Nostromo and basically sums up that some organism attacked the ship and caused all the members of the Weyland-Yutani company to try to blow up the ship to get rid of this said organism. The crew then decide, because the crew members on the Nostromo wanted to blow up the ship, and because its organism seems dangerous, that they would have to blow it up themselves. So they decide to go to the reactor, open it, put in an explosive device and a gasoline tank to blow up the reactor and set off the manual self-destruct sequence. On their way of trying to escape, Carl, who was at the reactor setting it to blow up, was attacked by the Xenomorph, and Aidan and Jessica, just barely making it to almost out, were attacked by the Xenomorph, which ended up injuring Jessica with a splash of acid which burned through her helmet and caused her to have some injuries. They then proceed back onto the Atlas and they wait for the detonation, trying to get as far away as possible using max thrust on their engines, but the explosion still damages the Atlas too much for it to continue on, and that just ends up with them having to be left of either sitting and waiting for help by sending a distress call or by going to a nearby planet. Obviously, they'd go to nearby planets, and sending a distress call would take a long time for help to get there, and there's also the solar storm that was blocking the signal. The script for Atlas, that was the point where I started saying I'm gonna put my most effort in this animation. In every single way I did, but I have to say it started from the script. I've been told in the past my dialogue is sort of unnecessary at times. It doesn't sound genuine, or it doesn't make sense, or whatever. And so this time I spent an entire month, every weekend, working 2 or 3 hours on the script, and I even got the script revised this time. I had JBW Films, Cactus, and Badlax Animations, along with all my voice actors who read the script and revised it, and I got suggestions from Cactus and some of the other people who reviewed it, and I was able to make corrections, yet there was still some basic mistakes. For example, I mislabeled a line, which meant the wrong voice actor played the wrong character at one point in the film, and there was also other small things in the script that could have been improved, but I was generally happy with how the script came out, as I did my best to revise it many times and got others to do so, and I think the script turned out better than all my other past scripts, and I learned from that lesson that I need to get people to always revise my script. So I want to say thank you to JBW, Cactus, and Badlax. You guys are the best, and I really appreciate you revising my script. There isn't much concept art for Atlas, but as you can see on screen, I had some small tests that I made beforehand the film, trying to get this kind of the walk cycle, cinematography, and other elements kind of lined up, and getting a general idea what I wanted for the art style to be. The main inspirations to mainly Alien Isolation, which was created by Creative Assembly and Sega, Alien 1979, which was created by Ridley Scott, Aliens 1986, Alien 3, Alien 4, Alien vs. Predator, like the whole Alien series inspired it, but mainly the two original films, Alien and Aliens, inspired this film. I really tried to immerse myself within Alien by watching Alien Theory, which is a great YouTube channel, you should check him out. And so by watching Alien Theory, I was able to learn more about the history of Alien, the production of Alien, xenomorphs, the different characters in the films. I also went as far as playing the whole campaign of Alien Isolation, making sure to pay attention to the ambiances, the sound design, the music, the atmosphere, the lighting, like looking at everything they did well, because it was so accurate to Alien 1979, and using that towards my film in every possible way. In terms of the storyboards for Atlas, this was the first time for an animation that I made a dedicated storyboard that was very detailed and that I actually used while shooting to help organize my shots. Because Atlas was a film that had many shots that were edited together from different sets and at different times that I filmed them, I had to make sure I was very organized, so storyboard would be very helpful with that. I made sure to include as much detail as possible in the storyboard, mainly by writing underneath each frame, getting the lighting, the shot type, and the various other factors lined up. And I also made the drawings pretty good. I didn't put too much effort into the drawings because that would have been a waste of time, but I got them so that it would just work for me, so I'd be able to tell what I was doing. Here I'm gonna play just a side-by-side comparison of the film and the storyboard at once, so you can see how accurate some of the scenes were. Atlas is by far the product that I'm most proud of on my YouTube channel, as I think in almost everything but maybe a bit in the animation, it was the best film I've ever made in terms of the visual effects, practical effects, sets, the lighting, the voice acting, the script, the story, and the miniature shots. It was just so fun to make. I had a great time with it. I took it slower so that I would be less pressured and stressed, and I found that I liked the slower approach because it helps me to put more quality into these uploads rather than putting them out fast, and I get to also take it slower so I don't rush as much. In this film I did rush some parts because I was feeling burnt out, but I learned so many lessons about how to make a film, a longer film, how to do many things. I had to overcome many challenges. I never filmed miniatures before successfully, and I had to teach myself so many things, especially motion tracking, and it was a hell of a ride and I enjoyed it so much. And I'm gonna continue, maybe not every year, but I'm gonna continue trying to make at least goals for bigger projects all the time. I even started already planning and doing concept art for my next project, and so stay tuned for that. And I just want to say thank you for all supporting me and watching this behind the scenes video. If I didn't cover anything, please let me know down in the comments. I'll answer any question you have with as much detail as possible, and I can answer any questions you have, so feel free to ask any questions you have. I was also asked if there was going to be a sequel to Atlas. The short answer is no, the long answer is yes. I'm not planning of doing a sequel right now at the moment, and at least for a year I'll be working on my next project until next summer, so you won't be able to see the sequel next summer. But it is possible in the future, if I regain my passion, I might do it again. The reason for me not wanting to pursue this is I had a huge surge and continue to have a huge surge of passion for another franchise, genre, style, and project right now. So I'm putting all my effort into that, so I can, I'm motivated to do this, so I'm gonna do this project first. And also, I wasn't really sure how I would continue Atlas without making it generic. If I got him to land on the planet whatever I came up with was too generic, too much like Aliens or Alien 3 or even Alien 1979, so I couldn't really come up with a unique idea to continue it. And if I did get them on the planet, the sets would be so elaborate and there would be so much absolute time-consuming set building and other detail-oriented things. I wouldn't be able to get a product I'd be happy with unless I spend lots of time on it. So if I do want to, maybe in the future I'll make a dedicated continuation, but for now I'm putting all my dedication into another project. Don't worry, because in between the release of this project in the summer, I will have some Halo themed and other themed animations. They won't be long, they'll be just like short, minute or 2 minutes at max, or less, 30-second things, and I'll have a compilation out, as well as I'm gonna have my 1K specials and my 1K contest, and I'll have an unboxing. Thank you. This is Rapid Action Animations, and thank you for watching this behind the scenes.